All right, Bang. Today is Tuesday. It is June 22nd. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Here with Chief. Chief, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I got to tell you, man, I am still thinking about the ice cream story from last week.
I feel like people love that story.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite ones we've done in a while.
I mean, it's. I still feel so bad. I blogged it the other day about my guy Frank Epperson got fucking $50,000 for $1 billion business just because he had partners who didn't want to have his back in court.
Sad.
Super sad.
Sad story. But yeah, I was really thinking about that. Water. We're on a nice streak here.
Yeah, I think I think this is gonna be a good one too.
Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are we doing today?
Well, Ed, as you know, even though you're red Ed, you're a communist. Next week is our
slander.
I'm just saying what people say. I would never say that. People say that. Next week is the 4th of July. So it's the American Revolution. And that, I would say, is a pathway or an opening point to talk about all the wars that have been fought for stupid reasons. And there's a list of wars where we're like, I can't believe that this happened. And I think that's what we're going to get into today.
Okay.
Some neat little tie-ins, we think about, like the UN, and there's like all these conflicts all over the place, and we're like, oh my God, like these are very serious things. And then, because it should be, if you're going to go to war, it should be over like a very, very good reason. But if you go back through history, and I'm talking even like 50 years ago into the 60s, people went to war for like the dumbest shit in the world and at the weirdest times in the world. And I don't know, like I read these, like people die, so it's tragic, but I read a couple of them and I'm like, this is kind of funny.
This sounds like it's going to be an infuriating episode.
I don't know. We'll see. There's some like interesting tie-ins and all's well that ends well. I didn't have to fight in these wars, so we're all good.
See? Harry, what are you looking at me for? Are you sure?
Intern Harry, is he in trouble?
No. See, a lot of people. So here's the thing. Rear Admiral was listening the other day, and they were yelling at me about touching the mic. I'm hearing it when you bang on the table like that. Are you?
Oh, it's Harry's fault.
No, it's your fault.
I'm banging
That's
on
what
the
Harry
table?
was looking at. Yes. So I don't know if people are hearing that. Our mics are super sensitive now. You're just doing it because you're just talking with your hands, and I don't know. Sorry,
I'm just having a conversation.
I know you are, exactly, and that's what I like to do. And I was getting fucking slandered for it all over the internet by our producer Tom, and I just want to show people it's everybody. Big Chief was a little banger right there.
Yep. Well, now I've adjusted how I'm sitting. I'm less casual. I'm more serious, and now maybe I'll just keep that under control.
Well, hear about this before we really hop into it. Though, here's something that's always good vibes. And it's a certain type of beer.
Oh, are we talking Miller Lite?
Yeah.
Great tasting, less feeling. The white can?
Yes.
That's Americana right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't wait. I always love those like pictures of people loading up like a bunch of beer. Those pictures, you like a pickup truck that's just littered with Miller Lite.
We did that. It was like always homecoming weekend. Someone would either rent a pickup truck or have a pickup truck, and you would line it with styrofoam and just fill it with, and we would take the Zamboni ice. So you would always have outside the hockey rink, would always have like those big piles of snow and ice.
Yeah.
We would steal that to be the ice for the day, load up the back of the pickup truck, and just dump Miller Lites in there.
I love that.
Yep.
It's a familiar feeling. You don't want to see that pickup truck filled with seltzers and IPAs. You want Miller Lite. So next time you're getting beers with friends, make it Miller time. Luckily, you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that they serve beer, or go to MillerLite.com/redline to find delivery options near you. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, Chief.
Yeah. I think if we kind of want to talk about wars fought or started over maybe not the biggest reasons, maybe our own American Revolution. This might open up the door for you to be like, well, you're a loyalist or whatever you want to call me, the way we call you Red Ed. But it's like, we're talking about tea. We're talking about taxes on stamps and tea and marriage licenses and things like that. We're going to go to war with the number one world power, our like parent country, over that. Like, they tax us, think about today, they tax us for fucking everything. We're not like rebelling against the government, but they had, so like you can even make an argument that our own American Revolution, I don't know, people just relax. Get some representation in there. Like, Canada never went to war. They went through all the same stuff, and then they eventually, England was just like, yeah, you guys can go.
Figured it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can even say that, and then there is like a little tinfoil conspiracy about the real reason for the start of the American Revolution. I think maybe we've talked about this before. There's a Ben Franklin quote that says, "The refusal of King George to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the primary cause of the revolution." So you talk about no taxation without representation. You talk about the Stamp Act, the tea tax, all these different things. In reality, the colonies just wanted to print and control their own currency, and the king said no. And so we've like had all like the George Washington, the Ben Franklin, the founding fathers, all these people who are like, we've made these heroes, and they likely were flawed people, but heroes. They wanted their own money. They just wanted to be able to like live on their own, do their own thing, and not have to like have all their like goods and stuff sold, and then the king releases money back to them. So that like they wanted to be in control of their own currency, because they felt like very independent from England. So they were like, you know what, fuck them. We're going to do our own thing here. What's the only way to ensure that we have our own currency and our own monetary system? Get rid of the king. And that's what they did. So they had all these excuses, all this and that. Paul Revere, it was really just about money. And it seems like maybe that's what a lot of these wars ultimately are about. They're just about money.
I mean, from the beginning of time, money was always the issue.
The beginning of time. There was also a war between France and Mexico, which was started over cake or pastries. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
The Great Pastry War of 1838. So this is like...
It's got a great ring to it, though.
The Pastry Wars, yeah. It sounds like a cooking channel show, but it's not. It's a real war where people died over fucking cake.
This is like Cake Boss versus someone from Chopped or something. This is what it should be.
Yeah. So this goes back. So Mexico had just gotten their independence from Spain. Like the Spanish Empire fallen like early 1800s. Mexico was doing their own thing. They had their own military. And so like I said, it's 1838. And part of what was happening back then is that as Great Britain and Spain and France were conquering the New World, you had a lot of people emigrating to these different countries, not really knowing who was going to be in power. They just wanted another shot. So you had a lot of French people living in America, a lot of French people obviously living in Canada, and some living in Mexico too. And the French, they were setting up businesses. So they had, carpenters and all this kind of stuff. And they had this guy who was a baker. And this guy said that he was a French citizen living outside of Mexico City. And he said that his bakery got ransacked and looted by Mexican officers of their military, who then refused to pay him. And that things like this have been happening to French citizens in Mexico like 3 or 4 times over a 10-year span. So from like 1828 to 1838, Parisians were like, to say they were oppressed or harassed is probably too strong a word. We're talking like 3 incidents in 10 years. Not a big deal. This guy is like, these Mexicans, goes back to the king of France and being like, I'm getting like assaulted here. Like they stole all my goods. And so the king of France was like, you know what? You're right. Because he wanted an excuse to go after Mexico. And like, this is after like the initial French Revolution. This guy had been this king. I can't remember the king's name, but the king had been, his family was like King Louis had his head chopped off, and then he escaped. And then the French Revolution kind of died down. They brought him back to be in power. And he was the last French king ever, this guy. And he's like, I want to reestablish France in the New World. It's like, this guy, they fucked with your bakery, let's send the Navy. So they did. So they asked Mexico to pay this baker and a couple other people 600,000 pesos. Which was a lot of fucking money back then in pesos. I don't know what the conversion rate is, but they said the whole bakery was worth 1,000. They were like, you have to pay in reparations for damaging and stealing. You have to pay 600,000. So the Mexican government was like, fuck yourself. Like, we're not doing that. So they send a letter back across the Atlantic, because this is way back when they can't even do cables. So the king opens up the letter saying, hey, like, fuck you. We're not paying this $600,000 ransom because a few guys ate a couple croissants or whatever. And so the king sent the entire Navy, or not the entire Navy, but like a large portion of the Navy. They ran a blockade for the whole Gulf of Mexico. So any city that was along the coast, you're getting nothing in, and they're like bombarding these different seaports in Mexico and not letting any trade or goods to come
Holy
in
shit.
over pastries. They're bombing the shit out of Mexico over a pastry shop. And this went on for like 3 months, that they're just getting shelled and bombed. They're trying to like, Texas was an independent country at this time, so they're trying to like run goods and like do trades with Texas, so they can even get like food and stuff into Mexico, because they just couldn't get anything through the Atlantic because the French forbade it with this blockade. So then Texas started being like, well, we don't want any trouble with France. Like, we're a new country. Like, fuck you guys. So then they started running their own blockade of like the border at Corpus Christi over the Rio Grande. So Mexico was just completely isolated, and they eventually like capitulated. They eventually like wrote a letter back to the King of France, being like, fine, we'll pay the $600,000. Just open up, leave us alone. France then was like, all right, but you also have to agree to these other trade deals with us. Like, you have to send us back corn and all this other stuff that you're growing at a discounted rate. Mexico agreed to that too. Just open the border. So that was March of 1839. Mexico, even though they agreed, never paid. They never paid. We're like, we'll just tell them we're going to pay them. Well, the check's in the mail type of situation. So that king gets deposed. He's the last king. They're going through this transition period, being like, and then no one's kind of minding the story. Then someone in France wakes up and was like, hey, I'm talking 25 years later. 25 years later. Hey, the fuck Mexicans never paid us. Let's go back and let's go take it. Let's go back. So they send the Navy and the Army back over to Mexico. They invade. They're in another war with Mexico in like 1861, something like that. 1859, sorry. And Mexico wins that war. And you know what that gave us?
What?
Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, wow.
So that Cinco de Mayo signifies it's not like the Mexican Independence Day. Like, they have a different Independence Day. Cinco de Mayo is when they defeated the French, and they call it like the France's second involvement or second whatever into Mexico. So without this fucking guy writing a letter to the king about his pastry shop getting lit up, no one's getting bombed on Cinco de Mayo drinking tequila. That's the ripple effect. That's the butterfly effect, that we have a cake war about a bunch of Mexican officers going in to this French pastry outside of Mexico City, ransacking it, eating all his croissants, him getting pissed off, France seeing the opportunity to come over and like take advantage of Mexico, getting their ass kicked in 1860, something like that. And now we have Cinco de Mayo because of that.
Hey, let's take a quick break here and let's talk about Roman Chief.
My favorite.
Let's stop thinking about grudges.
That is one thing that just takes you completely out of the mood.
Some revenge sex?
Yeah. Well, see, if I think about somebody that I hate, well, they shall remain nameless. It takes me out of the mood.
True.
Completely.
Yes.
So
And it's not clinically proven anyways. A clinically proven way to lasting longer in bed, though, is Roman swipes.
Yep.
They're effective, easy to use, and they're fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it, and let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. To get your hands on these, go to GetRoman.com/dogwalk. You can get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/dogwalk. Little change the promo code, folks. So
important.
Make sure you're looking
Note
out.
that.
Yep. GetRoman.com/dogwalk. So make sure you're typing that in.
And you know what? This is the reason I always talk about why Roman swipes are so great, is that, yeah, like we joke, like you don't have to count backwards from 10 or think about old generals and old grudge wars or whatever. You actually just get to mentally be in the moment.
Yep.
Without any, like, well, sex is over. Nope. You get to, like, do your part, be in the moment, enjoy it. And that's all thanks to Roman swipes.
Totally. So go get your Roman swipes, and yeah, let's hop back into the episode. So 2 thoughts. Obviously, there were ulterior motives here at play.
Yeah, I would say.
But the simple fact that 25 years they didn't have the, they still held that grudge to not have the foresight to be like, you know what, that was over pastries, that was stupid.
Right.
Is insane.
Crazy.
Like, it was insane in the first place, but then when it's like 25 years, we had time to think about, like, yeah, it's probably not, that probably wasn't as big a deal. We probably handled that not the best. Is insane. And then 2, like you said, who the hell knows? I feel like not many people know that Cinco de Mayo is celebrated over a war that was won over a fucking pastry shop.
Over a pastry shop. So it was the second, so the first French involvement and the second French involvement. The first one was the original one was in 1838, 1839, about the fucking cakes. And then they came back, like France was like, oh, they still owe us. They never fucking paid because the king they had a new system of government come in, and it was just like, it seems like they just forgot. It wasn't like they were like a bill collector, like asking Mexico to pay like every year. And then they're like, well, this would be a good excuse. And they like have it, it's in writing. Like you'd say like, well, they never pay the $600,000 that they owe us for that fucking pastry shop. Let's invade them. And then that's how we get Cinco de Mayo.
Wild.
That's
very wild.
I feel like I thought you would like that little nugget.
Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
That was a great one to lead off with.
The cake wars, the great cake wars of the 1800s. Of course. Who could forget?
I wonder like what's up with that? Like obviously probably not a shop anymore, but like that.
Yeah, that place.
Yeah, like where like
they still have landmarks there, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, and they have landmarks where they won that battle. Against
that should be
France.
illegal for it to be anything but a pastry shop.
Well, I feel like to the victor goes the spoils. Mexico won the war. They can tear that thing down, burn it, piss on the ashes if they want to. Set up whatever kind of shop they want.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I feel like you can do a lot with that. That's a nice tourist attraction.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like this is the birthplace of Cinco de Mayo.
This is it
right here.
This is it. Tell me, please let me know if that fucking pizzelle was worth two
wars.
Yeah.
And it's like it's 600. Let's say there was $600,000. How much does it cost to outfit your entire Navy, send them on a 3-month voyage across the entire Atlantic, but with wooden ships with sails, like fucking sailboats, keep all those people fed, land them, bomb the shit out of them? I'm guessing it costs more than 600,000 pesos.
Some good conchos, man.
Yep.
Some good conchos.
You want to go over to the next one?
Let's do it.
They call it the football war or football war. This is a war that started in and around a soccer games rather, in 1969 into 1970 between Honduras and El Salvador. Okay, so same part of the world, I guess. This is, back when they're, we'll call them third world countries, but they had like all these tensions building up. So they've both been independent countries for a while. Honduras is a bigger country landmass wise. El Salvador had more people. So people, kind of like how people come to the United States today looking for more opportunity. A lot of people from El Salvador were going over the border and looking for farmland opportunities, things like that, to like better their life. And they had so many migrants coming from El Salvador that 20% of the population of Honduras was actually, they call them Salvadorans. Salvadorians? People from El Salvador.
Yep.
And so now they're like, there's a lot of tensions. And in 1967, they enacted some law where it's like, if you're someone from El Salvador, you don't fucking count. Okay, so if you have land, we're taking that land back and we're giving it to native-born Honduran people. And they're like, what the fuck? So now this is like a problem because now you have people coming back that have no jobs, no money, no land because it was seized by the government, and they're like poor people. So they're trying to like work this thing out. And they happen to be playing each other in soccer in 1969 in World Cup qualifiers. So the first game was in Honduras, and all like the El Salvadorian fans were like subject to like a good amount of violence. Honduras won that game. Then like a week later, they're playing in El Salvador. There's a shit ton of violence from the El Salvador people trying to get back at the Honduran people because they all hate each other. They had a playoff game 10 days later that was in Mexico City, and the winner goes to the World Cup. So big fucking deal. Both countries like fever pitch about just the actual game, but then there's all these like political undertones where in the 10 days, because once the Honduras people found out what happened to like their friends and family who went to the game in Mexico, in El Salvador, heard like, yeah, like they're beating the shit out of us, they're doing this, they were doing that. There was a 10-day campaign against people from El Salvador living in Honduras, where, I mean, the government the official quote from El Salvador government, they broke off relations, and he said that Honduras did nothing to prevent the murder, oppression, rape, plundering, and mass expulsion of Salvador migrants back to, so like all these immigrants coming over, like legitimately being murdered in and around this soccer game about these different issues. And they broke off relations. They said 11,700 refugees from El Salvador had to flee Honduras and like to save their own lives. And then they kept trying to like figure it out. And then it got to like July, full out war. So El Salvador did a blackout of their country. So they couldn't have no lights or anything. And they sent their quote unquote, their Air Force, which both countries, like, they're poor countries. So, like, what could their Air Force be? Reports say that they had, like, old passenger planes where they were literally taking bombs and throwing them out the door and out the window. So that was, like, the bomber squad from El Salvador. So they flew over Honduras with these, like, old aircraft, threw, like, dynamite and shit out the window, blew up their Air Force, or blew up their different airports in Honduras, and then sent their military. There was only 2 roads leading between Honduras and Salvador. They took control of both roads and were, like, invading Honduras over this stuff. Honduras, they eventually, like, got their act together, retaliated. Their Air Force donated planes from us that were World War II planes. So if you're thinking of, like, that era, that's when, like, the fighter jet is becoming a thing. Like, you're thinking Top Gun, you're thinking, like, you know, the MiGs, the F-16s, F-14s, all the things that you're seeing flying over around Vietnam at that time. These guys are using, like, broken down old planes from World War II and passenger airlines where they're throwing bombs out the side. And these are the 2 countries that are fighting each other. They fought for, like, 3 months. And then at the, 6 weeks. And then at the end of August, El Salvador, Honduras, like, called around to United Fruit Company, which is a big, you know, they do, like, the Chiquita bananas. They have all types of land. Back then they own a lot of land in Honduras. So the United Fruit Company supposedly bought them guns and ammunition to fight El Salvador so they can keep their fruit interests and their plantations that they had down there in Honduran power, and then pushed El Salvador back across the border. And then on August 2nd, 1969 is when El Salvador is like, all right, we give up. And they just went back to normal. But it was basically Nicaragua, United Fruit Company supplying Honduras, and the whole thing got out of control because of violence between fans at 3 different soccer games.
I feel like to really, like, know if you're like, oh, that's crazy, that's overreaction, I feel like you really need to know what happened at those soccer games before you make an opinion. Do you agree, or is it like, no, dude, like...
Well, I mean, the certainly the buildup of the 10 days that El Salvador said, like, they were doing, like, murder and rape and, like, forcing people out of their homes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's fucking crazy. But just, like, fans fighting at games, I feel like that happens all the time. Like, Dodger fans, what do they punch people and stab people all the time. So there's no one's taken over Los Angeles because of that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just violence between fans there are some political undertones, but they went to full out. Yeah, like,
there's
war.
a little more to the story.
For sure. But like, the flashpoint was the soccer game.
Yeah, this is a big, the straw that broke the camel's back kind of
big
shit.
Time.
Yeah,
Big time. Yeah,
for sure.
There's other things going on, but just the fact that, like, they call them the football wars. Like, if you Google it and Google the football wars, this is what pops up. And it's matches between El Salvador and Honduras. Like, who's going to the World Cup? Who owns this country? Like, that's kind of what was at stake. So, which is fucking crazy.
And then El Salvador, they couldn't even get beat. You know, Honduras needed some help.
They needed some help, even though they were throwing bombs out of an airplane, like just a normal ass passenger airplane from the 60s. Like, I watched Catch Me If You Can, like an old plane like that. Just chuck a bomb out the window. That'll have to do.
Crazy.
You want another one?
Moving on.
Moving on. This is one between the United States and Great Britain. This is a war that started over... this one actually never really manifested itself into a full-out conflict, but we've talked about Oregon Trail, I feel like, on this podcast before. There's this cluster of islands out there right northwest Washington, and that's where the border between United States and Canada, back then it was still Great Britain. This is in 1859. It was on the 49th parallel. So it just goes, Montana, Idaho, Washington, and then there's Victoria Island, which belongs to Canada. And right there in that bay, there's just a bunch of these different islands. And you had, when they drew up this provisional treaty, being like, all right, this island belongs to you. This is where the actual border is. It runs in this little channel between San Juan Island and Victoria Island. And so you had people, like, they were already living there when this treaty between the United States and Great Britain was signed. And you had an American farmer who's growing, like, a tuber, which I think is, like, potatoes. Like, I think there's, like, stuff like that, tubers. I don't know exactly, sweet potato stuff. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And this other guy who's an Irish guy, so back then he's a United Kingdom citizen, British citizen. It's a pig farmer, and they were both living on the same island. They like coexisted, and this guy was paid by this Hudson Bay Trading to raise pigs and sheep and stuff like that for that greater area. And this Irish guy, and so he just let his pigs run free, got into this other American farmer's farm, ripped it to shreds. The farmer's like, "What the fuck? Like this pig is ripping up all my plants, all my hard work." He shoots the pig. And
we doing wars over dead animals now? Is that what we're about to do?
Oh, this is the pig war. Pig War of 1859. So then it becomes like this big thing. Now, what else has happened in 1850 around that same time frame? Civil War is about to pop off.
Yeah.
Right. Civil War is like they're battling back and forth, like who's going to be admitted into a state. They're trying to they have the whole thing where like we better make Maine a state, so then Missouri becomes the Missouri Compromise. It's like that is the thing of the time, like not tipping the balance of power to let slavery become enacted into law. And so there's a lot of internal strife. The pig war, there's two different, like this is like tinfoil conspiracy things where it's almost had turned into a false flag, but like it got very serious because they're off in this way far part of the world where there's no communication, but there is military presence to protect the settlers. So England has their troops, we have ours, and like the generals who are in the area are the ones who are escalating this thing. So like, hey, send for reinforcements. We got a problem with the British. So they're trying to defend like their quote unquote sovereignty over this fucking pig. Again, it was the same thing. The farmer shot the pig. The other guy was like, well, you owe me for the price of the pig. And the guy's like, well, I'm not paying that. Like your pig fucked up. So then they got into like this battle, and it was like, who actually has jurisdiction? Well, then they started arguing over the jurisdiction. Is it the British or is it the Americans? And then the people in the military in that region kept like escalating and escalating. UK sent 5 warships with over 2,000 soldiers. The United States sent almost 500 soldiers. So they were like gearing up, like ready to do battle over this land on this small island of the Pacific Northwest that started with a fucking pig. And the tinfoil part comes in where there's 2 theories. One theory was that there was a general there in the Pacific Northwest who wanted to start, both theories involved wanting to start a war with Great Britain. One guy was a Southerner, and he's like, well, if we start a war with Great Britain, that will distract the North, and they'll send all their troops out, and the South can just secede from the Union, and they'll be so distracted with fighting Great Britain that they won't have time to fight the South, and that'll give us a big advantage, and we'll be an independent country. The other theory coming out of that was that, hey, United States, North and South, big problem. We're trending towards a civil war. Nobody wants that. You know what we need? We need somebody we can all hate together. You know who we hate? Still, the King of England, the British Crown. Let's start a war with them, and we'll all get united. We'll all come together again. We need a common enemy. So those are 2 things where it was like, and there's a quote from one of these generals who were in charge back then saying, we'll make a Bunker Hill out of it. Meaning like, we'll just fantasize this thing. Don't shoot them until you see the whites in their eyes. Because they're saying like, hey, you're really outnumbered here. You're going to get slaughtered. We'll make a Bunker Hill out of it. We'll send cables back. We'll send letters back, Pony Express, drum up support. They attacked us on our soil. They slaughtered our troops. We're going to war with England. And that's what the generals wanted over there. Their motivations are still in question, but they were going to go to war. A major conflict, global conflict, European power in the Pacific West that would bleed over the rest, probably fighting other parts of Canada and the United States too, over something that started over a fucking pig.
You know, when it comes, like, it's the same thing. Everything just has a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. This was a land dispute.
Mm-hmm.
And this was also kind of hey, we're maybe probably a little sour of how things went down. Right? Could be a little bit of that.
I think it was more like, you always hear about, like, it's one of those, they call it the military industrial complex. And the first guy to say that I know of was Eisenhower. On his way out in 59, Kennedy was coming in. He's like, and he gives this farewell address. Beware of the military industrial complex. Like, we just got out of World War II. People had started to realize, like, hey, there's a lot of money in war. There always has been. Somebody has to pay for the tanks and the bombs and the planes and the bullets and the guns and all that shit. And if I'm producing those things, there's a lot of money in that for me. and a lot of glory if you're in the military, and a lot, so people organize for war. And so this is like another thing where it's like maybe this was like back in the 1800s, like a military industrial complex type thing, where it's like, let's drum up support for some fucking war. Then there'd be no witnesses, there's no cameras, it's a far off place, but they attacked us and slaughtered our guys on our soil. We're gonna take that. We can't be a little bitch. We had better go fight England over it. So they were about to, they avoided it. So they sent letters back when it was time to like actually go to war, both they're in to our ambassadors in the United Kingdom, and then the British people as well. They both got these things like, what the fuck? Like we're going to war over what's going on in Victoria Island, San Juan Island out in the Pacific Northwest. Like, let's slow it down. So like cooler heads prevailed, the people who were actually in charge, but the people who were on the ground in those areas wanted war.
They're ready to go.
They were ready to go. They wanted war.
I mean, this is the largest scale that maybe a war has started over an animal being on another person's turf. But I mean, this is such an American story. I mean, how many people have yard disputes and the dog's shitting on our side? We're going to push the fence over, but
this have you heard of the Hatfields and McCoys? Oh, we should do an episode on that. The Hatfields and McCoys?
I feel like you might have mentioned this to me, but I don't really know it in full.
It's like a similar type situation. I think a pig might have been involved in that as well. Somebody killed somebody's pig, and then you had these two families who were on the border of West Virginia and Kentucky, and they had like basically gang violence over that part of the country for like generations, like maybe 60 years or something. And then they're like assassinating people, sneaking up, burning things down. And then they had one family lived in West Virginia, one family lived in Kentucky. There's some river that divides it. So they would run back across, be like, hey, we're safe. Like, we're back at home base. You can't prosecute us because we're not under your jurisdiction anymore. So they fought that way, the Hatfields and McCoys, for like years.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do one on that.
It's a crazy story. It's like one of those things that's just like people just toss it out as like, oh, so they're going to be like Hatfields and McCoys. Like,
yeah. It's like a saying.
It's not the only war on here I have over an animal either.
Oh, no.
This will be the last one. The stray dog war. So this is another thing where this is after World War I. So you have the Austrian Bulgarian Empire kind of falls apart, right? And so there's this kind of land grab. And the Greeks and Bulgarians were on either side of Macedonia, which I just learned was a country this week thanks to the Euro Cup going on. They qualified. Shout out Macedonia. Shout out. And they're both battling over like who's going to control this area. And they got to the point where they're like amassing troops on the border. They're like Greek versus Bulgaria. Who's going to control this part of Macedonia and this far off place in the world? And so the Bulgarians have 10,000 soldiers on the border. Greece has 20,000. And there's like these dividing lines where there's no man's land. Like you don't go across. So they have this soldier who's out jogging with his dog. The dog gets off the leash, darts across enemy lines. The soldier darts to chase after the dog to bring him back, gets shot. And then it was like the chaos ensued. So they had like a gun battle over this border dispute that was completely accidental because a dog was just not trained or saw a squirrel or something ran across, which caused another guy to run across. You see a guy run across, a guy in uniform from the other side running across the border. Who knows what he's doing? Better fucking shoot him. So they had 50 guys, 50 Bulgarians died, and 121 is the estimate Bulgarian. So 50 Bulgarians died and 121 Greeks. And that in a war, in a battle, there's gunshots, cannons, all this stuff going back and forth over these borders. And how did it start? Dog ran away. It's just like, how does that happen?
Hey, let's take a quick break here and talk about the Roman swipes again, Chief. Most guys try different ways to last longer in bed, but thinking about baseball, like we said yesterday, counting backwards from 10, saying the Pledge of Allegiance in your head, that's not always going to work for you.
All that stuff stinks. You don't want to do math. You don't want to think. You want to be in the moment. You finally get to have sex. Be in the moment.
Totally.
Rub on one of those Roman swipes.
Roman swipes are clinically proven way to last longer in bed. They're effective, easy to use, and fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. To get your hands on them, all you got to do is go to GetRoman.com/dogwalk to get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/dogwalk. So that's a pretty good deal. Just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. You're going to want these swipes. You're not going to want to be thinking about a seltzer company that, you know.
That you may still hate to
exactly.
This day.
So go get your swipes. Roman's the best. So, let's just hop back into the episode.
Yeah.
But that's... Did the dog die?
No, let's look at what the Wikipedia.
That's a good question, right?
I would be...
Like that dog, he's got to be in some type of Hall of Fame or Hall of Shame somewhere.
I know.
He's got a restaurant named after him or something. A brewery.
I would hope. You know? No word on Wikipedia if the dog was shot or not. But they had to, remember, have you heard of the League of Nations?
Yeah.
So the League of Nations was like the precursor to the UN. But this whole like incident, they like had a ceasefire. It was like, we have to go talk about this at the League of Nations and like get it settled because we've killed like people. So before this war like boils into something big, it has to be settled in like the world court. And it's like, I can't even imagine like you're getting in front of like all these dignitaries in front of the world. Well, like, okay, like what happened? Well, dog ran away. So what the fuck are you talking about? We're going to have a war over a fucking like over a dog running away? Well, yeah, that's how it started. And then like Greece ended up having to pay damages because this thing went on for like a while. They had to pay 45,000 euro back then. So whatever that's worth today, I don't know. But there was like damages done. People had to be paid off. And like the League of Nations had to step in to settle this dispute that was started because of a dog.
So that's all the dumb wars we got today?
I mean, you can make an argument that there's like an infinite supply of dumb wars.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's why there's so many movies made about like World War I. Fucking stupid war. Everyone was just like, oh, like we're tied with them, but some random ass person killed Archduke Ferdinand, so now we're gonna have a war for 4 years where millions of people die. That's pretty fucking stupid. I think we've done an episode on World War I before.
Yep,
Archduke Ferdinand. So like I would say that some guy who's like a royal something of some failing empire gets assassinated by a group that has nothing to do with anything. It's a Serbian guy. He doesn't have anything to do with France or England or Germany, but those are like the big participants in this war. So you had some far off place in the world, random guy gets shot kind of randomly and sends the whole world into chaos. You could argue for a century. So Archduke Ferdinand getting shot, that led to World War I, which then led to World War II, which also led to the Cold War. We're talking millions upon millions upon millions of people dying because Archduke Ferdinand got shot.
Chaos.
Absurd. So yeah, I'd put that one in the category of stupid wars too. But yeah, I think that's all I got for this.
Have you ever been in like a dumb fights are always kind of the funniest too. I have a buddy who, and he's gonna kill me, but he has been in two of the dumbest fights of all time.
Like actual fist fights?
Not fist fights. One time he...
Just a grudge match?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One time he broke up with his girlfriend.
Okay.
Is
this the stakeout guy?
No. This is not a stakeout guy.
Right.
Broke up with his girlfriend of years, like probably 3+ years.
Okay.
Because she bought mayonnaise at the grocery store.
Oh, I don't follow.
So, like these stories, there's always more to it.
Yeah.
So, essentially, like, I don't know, like they were in a little bit of a tiff. Like she had gotten a tattoo. He's like, I'm not a big tattoo guy.
Yeah.
And one day, like, so the tensions were bubbling, and this guy like despises mayonnaise.
Okay.
Like despises it to the point where. Like she bought it out of spite because they were in this little battle because of the tattoo. And, she came home with him and he like threw it out of the cart and that pissed her off. And then like that became like
the mayonnaise war.
Yeah, the mayonnaise war. And they broke up for good. 3-something year relationship because of mayonnaise. And it is one of the funniest things ever. Like it's one of like my friend group. It's just, we still laugh about how him and his girlfriend broke up.
I have a similar one to that too.
Do you?
Well,
you personally?
Yeah.
I think you might have told me this. It's really funny too.
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of stories where I broke up with a girl for some stupid reason like that. But the one that sticks out is, I won't say the company's name, but we'll say it's in the beverage industry, and it's definitely not Miller Lite or one of their subsidiaries. But we had, in my old job, I was like pursuing this deal with this company for like a long time. And at the last minute, they bailed out. We'll say it's a seltzer company. And it's like, man, like I really chased that for like a long time, a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings. And they're just like, no. And we had done we spent money on like travel and test samples and all that. So I was like, that company's banned. We're going to go with company B. Like, don't ever bring those over here. I'm not drinking those seltzers. I mean, Miller Lights or their other big competitor. And this girl, like, we were out, and we're out at like a rooftop party, and she went out to get alcohol for us to bring, and she got like cases of the banned company. And I was like, I have very few like hard line things. This is one of them.
And she knew this?
Oh, it's been like this. Yeah, it had been discussed. And she just was like, wow, it was like $1 cheaper. I'm like, I don't care if it was free. Like, we don't associate with them.
That's not allowed in this house.
And like that. We don't
watch Purdue. We only watch the Irish in this house.
Yeah, there's only one team we watch in this house. And that, like, I didn't break up with her that day, but it never sat right with me. We never recovered. Broke up maybe like 3-4 months later.
See, yeah, those are the best. And then
it's just like, what? Like, I need like a modicum of respect. I understand that it's ridiculous, but like, I'm drawing a line here. And if you're with me, either you're with me or against me. And she was against me in that in that war over the seltzer. And there she was out forever. Never recovered.
It's so funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, shit happens, right? I mean, I think most situations arise over dumb shit if you really get to the crux of it, right?
Yeah. That's why it's like, I'm trying to think.
But it's also like, it's like, if you're going to do that, then what's next?
You give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to draw the line somewhere. Some people draw it around seltzers. Some people draw it on mayonnaise. Some people draw it around pigs.
So that same buddy, his like best, like one of his childhood friends.
Okay.
They were living together in college.
Is this guy Irish by chance?
I don't know, actually. Okay. Maybe it's a little bit. And they were living together, and it was move out weekend. And my buddy was moving out, and his other buddy was staying there.
Okay.
And he was getting increasingly frustrated because my buddy hadn't moved all his shit out yet. Like, whatever, there was,
okay.
And it was,
yeah.
And there was a big TV. I'm talking like one of those tube TVs.
Old school ones?
Old school, that you need like 3 guys on it, and you're all struggling.
Yep.
That fucking 200-pound TV, and it's like, we would give this guy shit relentless, like, dude, just get rid of it, get rid of it. But a college TV, especially our times, like, we use those.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot different now. I'd be interested. I think at this point it's got to be all flat screens, right? Like, all those are probably gone in these college houses.
I would hope.
Mm-hmm. So this guy got increasingly frustrated, and he knew this TV was a piece of shit. Like, this is one of those, like, you can't even list free. Like, you would have to pay someone to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he, so it was one drunken Saturday. The kid just threw the TV out of the house,
out the window,
and then out of the window or the house, and crashed, and it was shattered everywhere. And it was. And this is the same thing. It's not about the TV. It's a principle. You shouldn't be throwing his shit out like that. But then at the same time, like, his perspective, like, hey, maybe it was time for the.
I think there's a deadline.
There's a deadline. Sure.
Like, yeah. Hey, like, I can't get it on this move. Sure. The truck's full. Like, I'll come get it next week. Or if a month goes by, you got to pick up your piece. I don't know if it was a month.
I don't know how long it was.
That's an important detail.
Yeah, the details are a little hazy on how that went down, but. The moral of the story is, these guys, they still haven't talked. This friendship died because of a TV that was worth negative value. And just like, and we still give a shit. We're like, dude, like why? Like, dude, you did you a favor. Yeah. Like, you're gonna buy. Like, he's like, I don't give a shit. It's the point.
It's the principle.
Point. It's the principle. Well, he can't be doing that with
believe in something or fall for anything, Ed. You gotta people. If a man doesn't have his principles, he doesn't have anything. So I think I'm with the guy who threw the TV out.
So you think? Oh, you're on his side.
I think I'm on his side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that was your piece of property, you'd be cool with him just trashing it.
I think it would be like, come on, man. Like, you threw out, like, I wouldn't let it ruin like an actual friendship.
Yeah.
If it was my, because it's also like, it's worth negative dollars. If it was a new TV, That would be one thing. But if it's this old piece of shit TV, because I got to tell you, my gut tells me, I don't know these two people involved, he was never moving that TV. I don't think he was ever coming back for it.
He would have moved it at some point, I think, but it would have been on his time. And I don't know. Like, the guy got frustrated, drunk night, maybe made a mistake, maybe didn't. But it's just one of those things where we just still laugh about it. I wish I could find this exact model, bring it in here, have you try to lift it up, and just see, like, visualize what this ended over.
I had to do this, like, maybe my parents had this old TV on their upstairs. And those TVs, it wasn't just that they were big and heavy. It was like, it was this big thing, but all the weight would be in, like, the left-hand corner.
Oh, yeah, and there'd be no grip.
No grip.
Yeah,
or you'd tuck your fingers under there. They get, like, all pinched off from, like, the weight of it. And your blood was, like, in your fingertips.
How do we do it with that shit? Crazy.
Thank God we live now. It's just one of those things where you think about these different wars. Like with World War I was watching a documentary about this just the other night where it's like, people do not appreciate the fact that we get to be alive now, as opposed to back then where it's like, I would just be shot in some trench and no one would ever, like, think about me, or no one, like, I don't have to do any of that. Things are pretty great the way they are right now.
It's
no worries
crazy,
over
man.
pigs or archdukes or any of that shit.
Mayonnaise and tube TVs, man. Unbelievable.
Seltzers.
And seltzers.
I also think I was right about that.
Yeah.
You don't think so? If you have, like, one thing that you care about as a grudge, your significant other has to have your back no matter how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, and on the flip side, like, girls are very serious about that type of shit too.
For sure.
Like, they will dig their nails.
Do you know
into
how many
something.
fights I've pretended to care about that I've listened to that I'm, babe, I'm on your side. I am on your side.
What an asshole.
Yeah, Becky was totally in the wrong on that. You're so right.
Why would she say that? Why would she say that?
Why would she wear that same dress as you? Why would she do that? Can't do it. Can't do it. And then she did this. Oh, I can't believe you have to put up with that. I'm so sorry. And that's just the way of the world.
That's just the way of the world. Mm-hmm. And it will always be, probably.
Yeah.
All right, Chief. Thank you.
Anytime, Ed.
All right. That's it for today, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you then.